Hello everyone, welcome to another great episode of Now That's What I Call Gaming. If you're new to the channel, make sure you smash that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so that you don't miss a single minute of my great content. Today we're going to be continuing our coverage on remakes, and specifically, if my beginning scene didn't give it away, we're going to be covering the sequel to my last Now That's What I Call Gaming video. That's right, we're talking about the great sequel, Mega Man 2. Capcom released Mega Man 2 only 1 year after their first outing, but in that year they made quite a few changes that actually became staples of the series. For starters, this game actually opens with a backstory briefly covering the events of the first game and leading into the events of this one. Another thing they did was increase the number of Robot Masters. Instead of 6 like in the first game, you now have to face off against 8 before you can take on the Doctor himself. Another innovation, the E-Tank. Scattered throughout the game are these tanks that you can collect. You can carry up to 4 of them at one time, and if you have one, you can use it to refill your life energy at any time. This can come in handy, especially during the boss fights. This game also introduced sub-items. Now when you beat certain Robot Masters, on top of getting their weapon, you might get one of 3 different sub-items. First is a floating platform that'll let you reach new heights. The second item is a rocket jet that zooms you straight ahead as long as you have energy for it. Then you have item 3, which is similar to item 1, only it crawls up a wall as long as you're standing on it. This new mechanic actually adds a certain extra layer of strategy to the game. For example, there's this part in Heatman stage where you have to traverse a lava flow and a bottomless pit using disappearing blocks. Now, while this is possible to do, it also is very hard. One wrong step in, you're done. Then you have to do an entire section of this level again before you can even attempt this section. However, if you grab item 2 from Airman first, you can just zoom right over this section, bypassing the whole ordeal. But you may not necessarily have the weapon Airman is weakest against. So you might have to try to take him down with just your standard arm cannon, which, while it is possible, is also challenging. As I said, this adds an extra layer of strategy beyond the first game of just taking on the Robot Masters based on the weaknesses they have. You also have to consider if it's worth beating the bosses in order of their weaknesses, or if you should take a chance to get an item that's going to make a later stage easier. I always say Capcom seems to always make the best sequels, and well, look at the list. You got Street Fighter 2, Resident Evil 2, Ghouls and Ghosts, and Mega Man 2 is widely regarded by many fans to be the best game in this series, and even one of the best games in the entire NES library. Capcom also stepped up their game in the music department. If you thought the original Mega Man had great music, this music is like listening to the London Symphony Orchestra after seeing a high school band. Just take a listen to the music in Woodman stage here. They even included 2 difficulty settings. At the beginning of the game, you can choose between normal or hard difficulty, only in the American version. Hard is the version they got in Japan, whereas in normal, Mega Man does twice the damage against bosses and the HP of all enemies is cut in half. That doesn't mean this game becomes a cakewalk though. It is still that same level of hard that made the first game so good. Hard enough to frustrate you in just that special way where you want to continue the game just to beat that level. In a huge step forward for the series, Mega Man 2 is the first game to feature a password system. As you beat each Robot Master, you get a password. That way, if you have to leave, you can continue your game where you left off. Back in the day, it was not uncommon for fans of the Mega Man series to have notebooks loaded with passwords. No more leaving your system on and hoping there was no power outage, or having to start from square one if your parents said you had to go somewhere. Now, we gotta talk about this cover art for a second. While it is much better than the original game, it still doesn't seem like it was drawn by someone who played the game or even saw the game. They still have Mega Man looking like he's wearing a bike helmet of some kind and shooting with an actual gun instead of his own arm cannon. But at least they got the colors right, so that's progress. So for the remake, we are once again brought back to the Wily Wars. And the first big difference you'll notice is there is no difficulty setting in the title screen. And as you'll quickly come to find out, the game seems to be on the original Japanese mode, or the difficult setting in the US. The graphics, music, stages, all of it gets that same high quality facelift that its predecessor got, all while keeping the stages exactly the same. But everything I said about the original Mega Man follows through to this version as well. One big thing, no passwords in here. But again, that's because of the fact that the Wily Wars saves after you battle each boss. The hard part with this is there's really not much I can say beyond what I already said about the first game. As far as the graphics go, just compare the lead up to this boss fight between the two games. As for the music, here's that iconic tune from Wily Stage 1 in the NES. And here's the same section on the Genesis. As far as how to play this game, once again, the same stuff I said on my last video applies here. The best version is the Wily Wars version, but due to the difficulty of getting that, it may not be an option. Unlike my review of Mega Man 1, however, there is another way to officially get the Wily Wars version of the game. Retrobit has released a collector's edition of this game for the US market. It'll run at the proper frame rate on your original Genesis hardware. Now this set will cost you about $70, but it comes packed with so many extras that, when you consider a cart-only homebrew version can run you over $40, the $70 they're asking might just be well worth it. However, unlike the original title, this game isn't overly expensive to get on a cart only, coming in at around $28 US at the time of this video. If you can't get your hands on a copy of Wily Wars, since it is included as part of several different compilations, most recently the Legacy Collection, that again is how I would recommend buying this game. Because why spend $28 for just one game when you can spend a little less and get 6? Plus, the Legacy Collection gives you unique challenges and access to the complete soundtracks to all the games, if that's something you're into. And with as good as the soundtrack is to this game, you might just find yourself enjoying listening to it. So there you have it, the comparison of Mega Man 2. We're not done with Wily Wars or even with Capcom yet. They are quite fond of remaking several of their older games, and we'll be seeing more of them later on. Meanwhile, stay tuned for another great review, and I thank you for watching. Now that's what I call gaming.